Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is John J Gaming on the mic here, coming at you with the very first Big Earl football podcast here in season number 4 of the Earlham Team Builder Dynasty here on NCAA 14, featuring that college football revamp, of course. And let me tell you what, I am excited. We got a lot to unpack here in these first couple of games. You know, we played Ole Miss, we play against Michigan, so go ahead and recap those first couple of games and, you know, see what we're doing really well with and what we could work on as well moving forward. Also going to check out some high school highlights that just came into the office earlier today, as well as take a look at our recruiting board, taking a look at our next opponent as well, and then on top of that, we'll check out the stats for our guys as well. So it's going to be a really great podcast coming up here for you guys. And if you're excited for it as well, I need you guys to do me a favor. Smash that like button for me, and if you're brand new to the channel as well, and if you haven't done so already, definitely encourage you to hit that subscribe button as well. We'd love to put you guys into the community that we got built on around here, man. So, without being said, let's go ahead and get into it.
So let's go ahead and take a look at another prospect that's really close to signing with us is Ryan Smith. Now, he is listed at fullback, and, you know, not to mention he is technically listed as a bust. But that being said, he does have some solid all-around skills that he brings to the table. You know, he may not be the flashiest player, but he is considered a tough guy. You know, we could always use some toughness on this team at the end of the day. I love the way he fights through tackles, and I think he'll be a great addition onto this team.
So this is what our remaining recruiting class looks like as of right now. The thing for us is that for some reason, you know, in our pipeline states, there's not a lot of players interested in us. And, you know, the thing that we have to do as part of our recruiting restrictions, we can only go after guys in pipeline states that are interested in us, at least initially. We can't expand it out if, you know, we signed everybody that, you know, we could. But that being said, though, first guy that we got here, Trey Cole, who's actually the first four-star player that's interested in the program. He is a, you know, halfback from New Haven, Indiana. He's considered the 12th best halfback in this entire recruiting class. But that being said, you know, looking at his scouting stuff, you know, he's borderline a bust, to be honest with you. You know, he has 88 speed, 80 acceleration, which, I mean, that stuff isn't bad, but, you know, there's a lot of stuff that he could definitely work on for sure. Does have good elusiveness and a good juke move, but cannot, you know, pass or run protect, you know, whatsoever. And then his catching leaves a little bit more to be desired as well. He only has 54 catching out of the backfield, so that's something that, you know, should definitely be worked with. So even though he's listed as the 12th best running back, you know, definitely not the 12th best running back in this recruiting class, if you get what I'm saying. But, you know, that being said, Franklin is going after him as well, but it looks like we have a very good edge on him for the time being. You know, it's just us and him with scholarship offers. We have a huge lead on that right now, and, you know, even though he may not live up to expectations of a 4-star prospect, you know, he can still come in. He can be a starter for us at some points, or, you know, at the very least be a depth piece. And, you know, it makes our recruiting class look a little bit better in the recruiting rankings, so there's that too. Jordan Burton is also being looked at. He's a 3-star corner from Warsaw, Indiana. He's the 34th ranked cornerback in this recruiting class. He's got good size, you know, 6 foot plus. That's something that I really like to see, you know, being able to, you know, contest, you know, larger wide receivers. And now he is -2 overall, but he does have really good speed. 92 speed, 84 acceleration. That's something that I really do like to see. One thing that he does definitely need to work on quite a bit is his tackling. He only has 53 tackling, which is definitely a big deal for us. It also only has 60 play recognition as well on top of it. His coverage skills are pretty solid though. 70 man coverage, 76 zone, 63 press. So his, you know, coverage skills, those are pretty solid, you know, to look at going forward. But the thing for us is we might not get this guy. Anderson is really going hard after this kid. You know, Yar has a visit scheduled for them for week 13. we're about 900 points behind, so unless something changes, we probably won't get this kid actually, which would be pretty sad. Another cornerback that we're going after is Tim Simmons, and he's from Bluffton, Indiana. The 43rd ranked corner, it's a little bit undersized, I will say that. 5'9", 175 pounds. That's smaller than me. But he does also have good speed. 90 speed, 85 acceleration. Things that he really needs to work on. He needs to work on being fundamental with his coverage skills. When you're 5'9", you don't have that size, to allow for, larger mistakes. So that's something that we could work with. But, somebody that we can come in and, bring him in as a developmental prospect, perhaps. There is a couple other schools giving him scholarships, Anderson and Hanover included. But right now we are pulling away from both those schools ever since we started putting points into him. Up next, we have a 3-star guy in Marlon Thomas from Bloomington, Indiana. He's a 55th ranked middle linebacker in this recruiting class. He's considered a coverage guy, but he's more of like an all-around person per se. Both his tackling is just very across the board. He can't do one thing well, but he can't do any. It's not like there's anything terrible going on with him as well on top of it. On the plus side, though, we did go ahead and offer this guy a scholarship for us going forward, and Manchester and Tennessee are also looking at him as well, but it seems like he is most likely going to be an Earlham Quaker at this current juncture. This is a guy that we could definitely bring in as depth for sure. We already have Josh Brown. We also have King Ray, who's a freshman redshirt, but he can come in, get redshirt, be a good depth piece for us going forward. Spencer Brown is another guy that we're looking at from Terre Haute, Indiana, actually. He's a 74th ranked free safety, and he's a 61 overall. And to be honest, he does remind me quite a bit of Caden Domino. Seeing as Caden Domino isn't a guy, that isn't very fast. Caden Domino also only has like 78, 79 speed. But, he definitely works, on his craft, works on his fundamentals as well. And it's good that Spencer Brown is a free safety because, he's too slow to be a corner, but in time, if, he works on his coverage skills, he can be a Caden Domino type person, and be that, slot corner for us, or, even, a guy that comes in as an extra linebacker. That's, something that I could see in him potentially. He does have 75 hit power, which is something that I really like, even as a defensive back. But, that 2-star rating is mainly because of the lack of speed that he has. But I think we can utilize him as a linebacker. Ryan Bailey is a guy that we're still waiting on his high school highlights. But right now, he is 6 foot, 198 pounds here for the time being. He's from Fishers, Indiana, and is a 123rd ranked quarterback in this class. And yeah, he's not fast whatsoever. 57 speed, but does have good throw power and accuracy. 80 throw power, 75 throw accuracy. We're in a tie one between us and Franklin, and then Notre Dame and Rose-Hulman also have offered scholarships as well. But, that being said, this is a guy that, it's going to come down between us and Franklin, I think, at the end of the day. Luke Davenport is also another player that we're going to look at later this season. We're still waiting on his high school highlights as well. He's a 3-star tight end from Martinsville, Indiana, and worst case scenario, if we don't get the fullback that we looked at in today's podcast episode, we can go ahead and move him over to the fullback position because he is a blocking tight end, but he would have good attributes, for a fullback as well. 74 speed, has that ability, to separate himself, decent jumping, has decent catching abilities as well. Also has pretty nice impact blocking, so that would be very important for a fullback. That's something that we can definitely go ahead and utilize moving forward. But, Luke Davenport, he's a guy that will most likely be an Earlham Quaker as well. He has scholarship offers from us, Franklin, and Anderson. But that being said, we're pulling away from him quickly. The next player that I want to go ahead and highlight is Jason Bradley. He's from Bar, Texas. He's a 62nd ranked free safety in this recruiting class, and he's considered a hard-hitting guy here, pretty sure. Also, someone that reminds me of Caden Domino. He only has 76 speed, which, is a little bit of a red flag, but has very good hit power, though. 82 hit power, that being said. This is also a guy that we can, go ahead and move at, potentially linebacker, if we do ever convert to like a 4-3 linebacking scheme one of these days. It's between us and Louisiana Tech, and right now Louisiana Tech, they're starting to pull away from us. They are really, going hard for this kid, that's for sure. It seems like with quite a few of these players, just have to be recruiting some of the harder targets that other schools are going after. But Jason Bradley, could be a redshirt guy as well. That's something that I can think of. Following Jason Bradley, we have another 2-star prospect from Harper Woods, Michigan. The 222nd ranked guy is, Cornell Grant. And something that I do, since we are a 2-star school, I am going to modify things. If there's nobody interested in us in our pipeline states, I will go ahead and extend the search out to our non-pipeline states. But it has to be a 2-star or less because we are a 2-star school. Anyways, Cornell Grant is a 5'10", 181-pound guy. And, despite that, he's probably a tough cookie. 84 speed, not, very impressive necessarily. But he does have some good stamina, which is something that I do really like to see. He does need to work on, his moves, to get away from tacklers. He's not going to be a guy that's going to break tackles for us, but he does have good route running. He has 70 route running. That's something that we can utilize. Again, somebody that will probably not touch the field much in his freshman year, but he can build into something if we develop him properly. And we're also the only school that's going after him currently, so don't be shocked if he becomes an Earlham Quaker. Another 2-star prospect that we're looking at is Ronaldo Booker, the Maywood, Illinois product, plays center, and is the 50th ranked center in this recruiting class. The 6'3", 280-pound product. He's not very fast or very athletic whatsoever. He can accelerate, but he can't accelerate into much with that only 53 speed to show for. That being said, he does have fundamental blocking abilities, is a 75 strength, and then has at least 70 in pass block, run block, and impact blocking all at the same time, which is something that I do really like to see. LSU has also offered a scholarship to this kid, but it looks like he'll most likely become an Earlham Quaker here at the same time. And he's really interested in our playing time. I think that he can at least see the field some to a degree in his first season as an Earlham Quaker. But my preference is to go ahead and redshirt this guy as well, and go ahead, let him develop, with the quality offensive lineman that we do have on the roster already. Another 2-star guy that we're going for is the first Alabama person that we've ever placed on a recruiting board, Cole Everson. He's a 69th ranked strong safety, which is very nice. He's 5'10", 184 pounds, but again, a lot of like Caden Domino's that we're going for at like the free safety, strong safety position. Best case scenario, he's a depth guy, and we're going after a strong safety to make sure our strong safety requirement is taken care of, because we do need a strong safety. He can tackle, but that's really about it, to be honest with you. We haven't put any recruiting points into him yet, but it looks like we're the only team that he's even heard from, and for a good reason. When you're 5'10" and only have 7.7 speed, this might be a situation where we maybe go ahead and maybe put him on the offensive side of the field, something like that. Not sure if strong safety will be his final position at the end of the day, but that's something we can always look at in the offseason if we do go ahead and sign this kid. And now the final player that we're looking at from DeKalb, Illinois is Andy Miller. He's a 1-star guy, a JUCO product from in the Illinois JUCO college system. He's a 25th ranked punter, and he's considered a pretty accurate cat here as well, who could be our starter right away. Now, we can't run any punts with fake punts with him necessarily, because he only has 42 speed, so he is an extremely slow human being. But he does have 66 kick power, 72 kick accuracy. He can step in, be our punter right away. And sadly, he's the best player that we're going after, from an overall perspective. 68 overall. And it's a little sad when your punter is like the best person that we're going for, but it's still a long recruiting season going just yet, and we could always expand our recruiting board, and maybe we can still find some diamonds in the rough potentially. So we go ahead now and see how the first 2 games of the season have gone for us, as well as who we have up next on the schedule. And we started off, with some tough, non-conference games. We started off on the road to play against Ole Miss, and then we went on the road again, this time going to Michigan and play these guys. And, we came out 1-1, which I am pretty excited about overall. If we can come out of this non-conference schedule, what we've had 2-1, and then we go into conference play, I feel really good about our chances to at least finish with a 10-win season or plus. And that would be something that would be really awesome to see moving forward. But that being said, let's see what we got going on here. And what I hate, unfortunately, like if you guys remember from that episode in the Ole Miss game, we actually my capture card started to mess up like towards in that fourth quarter. So unfortunately missed a lot of the key moments in the fourth quarter. But what ended up happening is last like few minutes, Price Jr. had a 43-yard pass for a touchdown as Miami Uiagalelei just like put that one on a tightrope. And then towards the end of the game as well, we had an interception. We intercepted this quarterback for Ole Miss. It was the only interception that he threw in the entire game, and we nearly took that to the crib. We did go ahead and had like another touchdown to end this ball game, but it is really sad that I couldn't like get that like footage for you guys. I'm still kind of pissed about it, to be honest with you. What I'm not pissed about is how we handled our run defense for the most part. Castillo, was considered one of the best running backs in the country going into this game, but he had 13 carries for a grand total of 14 yards, and nobody else had more than 10 yards on this team. We did a really good job of keeping them contained with the run, and we had to make them a little bit more one-dimensional for the most part. We did let them get some big scores on us for them, which I am a little disappointed about, but we handled our business overall. And our offense as well looked really good. Miami had multiple touchdown passes, and then on top of it, we had it going on the ground game as well. Our tight ends look really good on top of it. Jeremy Sprinkle Jr. had 4 catches for 80 yards, and then Robert Price Jr., he only had 1 catch, but it was for 43 yards though. Like it was for a touchdown. It was to help seal like this game for us, which something that I'm super happy about at the end of the day. So I'm happy. I'm excited to see if we can have that kind of consistency. That would be something that I would be really happy about at the end of the day. But that's the thing though, we have to see consistency from our offense. I kind of talked about it when we played against Michigan, in that episode on Saturday. But that being said though, taking on the Michigan Wolverines, we held them to 12 points. And 3 of those points were off of a turnover. Justin Burton tried to, do something, with the final play of was supposed to be the final play of the first half, but then he fumbles it, and then Caden Domino goes ahead and he grabs the face mask to try to prevent the touchdown. And because it was on us, they got one more untimed down, and they got a turnover off of that. We couldn't find the end zone in that game. We even had more total offense than the Michigan Wolverines. This was the number 2 team in the entire country, and they had a 99 overall offense, and we did a really good job of containing them. We just could not find any consistent push down the field. Like, we were able to get first downs and all, but we just could not like string together a solid drive, except literally 2 drives, one of them ending in a field goal, and then the other one, we turned it over on down. So I mean, it is what it is. So I really like how our defense handled it. We held them to 142 yards passing, which is really good. And why I'm saying that is really impressive, I have to show you guys how good Michigan's roster is. I didn't realize how good it was until I checked it out. So check this. So this right here is the Michigan roster. Look at the guys that they have on the offensive side of the ball. They had a 98 overall tight end, which we held to just 2 catches for 18 yards. We had a junior redshirt quarterback, Chris Long, who's considered a pocket passer, but he has 87 speed for a pocket passer. We're talking about a pocket passer here. So the fact that we were able to contain him as well for the most part, that's really darn good. He might go to the NFL as a first round pick. They also had, other stars like Joe Mueller and Brian Ross as well. They had some guys on the offensive side of football. They were basically really stacked, across the board. I was impressed that, we were able to contain them to 12 points, but, how far we go this season is dependent on our offense, right? I think our defense can have this kind of level of play, throughout the course of the season, but that being said, can the offense be consistent enough? I think if we can score, anywhere between 25 and 30 points a game, we're going to be able to win the football game 9 times out of 10. But, if we don't get there, we might be in a little bit of trouble. So that's, why I bring that up. The good news for us, though, is that our next game is not going to be as difficult as what we experienced when we went up against both Michigan and Ole Miss. Both of those teams, high-profile programs. Ole Miss a little bit on the downswing, but it's still an SEC team, that we end up in beating on the road, which, something that I really like to see. Our first non-conference win in this dynasty. And now we take a look at our next opponent. We're taking on the Arkansas State Red Wolves. Not as, I think, compared to, what we went up against the first couple of games, this should be a little bit easier for us on our end, as we take a look at who they got. They got a couple of dudes here for sure, but they don't have a lot of guys in the 80s, it seems like. We do have TJ Campbell, as well as Dennis Miles, and then Joel Homer as well. But looking at this roster, there really isn't anyone here that is considered an NFL prospect just yet. Somebody, so maybe potentially look out for Stephen Arrington, and then maybe Jeremy Penn, could be future NFL players if they stay for their senior year. But other than that, I don't think we're going to be facing against any players that are going to go to the NFL draft this season, as we will go ahead and check out what we got going. So typically, Joel Holmiller is the starting quarterback for this team, but it looks like he's injured. I don't know how long he's injured for yet, but assuming that he can't play against us, we'll be going up against another senior redshirt quarterback, Wyatt Harwell, who has played sparingly in the past couple of seasons, including this season, but hasn't necessarily looked good in those performances. Only 300 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, and an interception, to show for it in his career. Hasn't gotten to the end zone on the ground yet. No wonder why. Only 59 speed. So, shouldn't have to worry about him escaping the pocket necessarily. But that being said, he has solid awareness and then has good throw power and accuracy. He has 83 throw power, 83 accuracy, but other than that, not much to be worried about with this quarterback personally. So if we do end up facing Wyatt Harwell, we just have to make sure, to stay home, have a similar game plan to what we did, the first couple of games, make them rely on that passing attack. Speaking of a running game, Ken Marshall is starting for this team, and, he's got 85 speed. He's more of a power back type of person. He isn't going to, get many big runs downfield necessarily, but he is a very, good player when it comes to breaking tackles. He has 89 break tackle and has very good vision as well. 93 ball carrier vision. That could be an issue for us moving forward. And then also has a very good stiff arm, spin move, juke. He can even run routes out of the backfield. He has 75 route running. Can't catch worth a damn, but he can route run, cross over our linebackers if we're not careful. And has decent, run blocking. He's surprisingly solid with that. 66 run block, 57 pass. So this is a pretty solid running back that we're dealing with. And then behind them, there's Eric Peterson and Shannon Jefferson in the wings. At fullback, Michael Washington is the starter. He's a blocking fullback from Lancaster, Texas. Backing him up is Brandon Hicks. At the wide receiver position, they actually only have 5 wide receivers on the roster. So that tells me is that what could happen is that they could be going ahead and running the ball quite a bit. Would not expect any 5 wide out sets or anything like that. And the thing about it is that 3 of their 5 wide receivers are seniors, and then the other 2 are juniors. So Arkansas State, they'll definitely need to go ahead and recruit some wideouts, but they do have some burners. Travis Haynes, Justin Goff, and Terrence Davis all have 90 plus speed. Meanwhile, Lamar Sims and Brandon Mitchell are more possession guys, so they can certainly burn this downfield, but you know, there's not many like wide receivers on this list, to be honest with you. So, you know, if they get shaken up, you know, we might be forcing them, you know, to do a lot of like running, maybe play action boosts, at least allow them to, you know, limit the offense a little bit. At tight end, you know, they do have 4 tight ends though, but they're not very good. Victor Fine is a 71 overall. He's going to be listed as a starter with Kyle Hill coming in and getting some playing time occasionally. The Dumas, Arkansas product, true junior. Then behind him is Paul Nixon and Michael Capps. Checking out the rest of his offensive line, you know, the offensive line, you know, all things considered, you know, is pretty solid. They got some solid guys. Stephen Arrington, a guy that I talked about, and then also Avery Britt. He's a senior red shirt. You know, he can definitely, you know, handle his own in the running game. You know, it seems like, even though he's listed as a pass blocker, Dennis Miles is the best player on this team, and he's an 86 overall. 71 speed guy, but is 98 run block. He can run some people over in that running game. It'll be a great test for our defensive line, which has played extremely well. But they have Sean Williams as well. He's a Conway, Arkansas product. He's only a 73 overall, so he's not fantastic by any stretch of the imagination. But overall, this is a pretty solid offensive line that we're going up against. Over on the defensive side of football, the best player on the defensive side is true senior TJ Campbell, a pass rushing guy from Lockhart, Texas. Right now, you know, checking out his stats, he's played all 4 seasons, but hasn't really made much of a contribution. Only 2 assisted tackles to his name so far, and hasn't really lived up to, you know, what you would think a guy of his caliber would be able to do. His best season was last year, but he only had 3.5 sacks, 19 tackles on top of it, and 33 assisted tackles. But he's not as big of an impact as I would expect him to be. But that being said, he does have good speed though. He has 81 speed, and he has some great power and finesse moves. Just seems like a type of guy that has the skill sets, but just hasn't really been able to go ahead and put it all together just yet. But, you know, even though he hasn't put it together stat-wise, this is somebody that we do need to keep track of at all times. Over on the right end position though, they have Jason Masson. He's a sophomore red shirt and is a 65 overall. He's not very fast for a defensive end, so he might be able to take advantage of that with Miami Uigallie, as well as some read options as well on top of it. At defensive tackle, they only have 3 DTs, so that tells me that they run a free 4 set. They do have Mike Davis as a true senior. He's an 81 overall guy. He's got good strength though, 84 strength. You know, is a very you know, stereotypical defensive tackle. Not very fast, but he can plug some holes for you. Pause. Has some good power moves as well, and block shedding, so that could really help out in the run defense. You know, if we can't establish this running game, that could be an issue for us, you know, because we are still leaning on that running game a little bit. Miami can pass the football. He's a better passer, but if we have to ask him to pass, you know, 30, 40 times, you know, that's not usually a winning formula for us still. They do have Michael Daniel and Boyd Dean as backups. Over at the left outside linebacker, they actually have a true freshman starting. They have John Randall. He's only a 67 overall though, but he has very good speed, 88 speed. So he definitely has speed to burn for sure. You know, just seems like a very raw prospect, but you know, he can definitely develop into something special here for the Red Wolves. And then at middle linebacker, there's another freshman, Cornelius Manning. Again, you know, a very raw player, 85 speed though. That's something to definitely watch out for. Montreal Jacobs is behind him as well. He has 84 speed. This is a fast linebacking core. You know, a lot of these linebackers got 80 plus speed. Eugene Whitaker, he's like the slowest of the starters, and even he has 75 speed. But he can come in and plug holes as well. You know, more foundationally sound as a freshman. This is a very young core though. At cornerback, Dan Armstrong leads the group. He is a 78 overall, has 91 speed. They also have Kay Solu and Clay Williams on top of it. Wouldn't be surprised if they run some like free corner sets, you know, something like that. Ryan Crawford is also able, you know, he can hit hard. He is considered a hard, you know, hitting type of guy. He has 73 hit power, which is pretty solid for a quarterback, to be honest with you. But they only have 4 solid corners, and then, you know, after that, you know, it gets a little questionable. At free safety, there's Jeremy Penn. He's an 80 overall guy from Atlanta, Georgia. Right now, you know, he only has 1 assisted tackle. Hasn't caused any turnovers yet. Actually hasn't, but he does have a fumble recovery. He at least has that on him. But other than that, been a pretty quiet season so far for the Arkansas State safety. He does have 90 speed, so he can keep up with guys like Darren Blue as well as CJ Holman and all that good stuff. Good tackler too, 85 tackler. He's a great guy to have as the last line of defense, that's for sure. His man in zone is not that great though, and his play recognition is only 61 overall. So maybe he is the type of guy that we can go ahead and try to run some play action on him, try to fool him, and maybe set up some big plays down the hill when we want to go ahead and try and take a deep shot. At strong safety, we'll have Lee Miller starting for the squad. 85 speed guy. Seems like a great Walmart brand Justin Burton, seems like. He came in with roughly 85 speed, if I'm not mistaken, but, you know, has really grown and developed, though. However, that being said, he hasn't really touched the field that much. He doesn't have more than 10 tackles, only has half a sack in his career, no turnovers forced either. This is really his first season of getting consistent playing time. So, even though he is a junior, he's very inexperienced, you know, when it comes to reps in game action, something that we could take advantage of as well. Finally, at kicker, there's Jonathan Herman, who's pretty solid, 80 overall guy, 2 for 2 so far in the season, but his longest field goal is only 36 yards. But that being said, you know, pretty solid kicker, 80 kick power, 81 kick accuracy. It won't be good enough to probably like get some touchbacks, and we got some very good kick returners, and we can maybe finally house one of these kicks. Finally, a punter, they have Nate King, who's a true sophomore, 77 overall guy, you know, more of a kick power kind of person, 81 kick power and 74 accuracy. So I'm going over to check out the season stats for our guys, and look who we have on the board. Currently in 5th place, we have Miami Uiagalelei. He has 379 passing yards. That's good for 5th place in the NCAA. Granted, that is in 2 games, but that being said, you know, he's been doing pretty well for us this season, you know, overall. You know, he struggled a little bit in the Michigan game, but he had some great throws against Ole Miss that led to our first non-conference win in school history. Something that I'm still, you know, pretty happy and excited about, unless you haven't noticed. Just going around and see where else everyone is standing. Just trying to see if we do happen to have anybody in the top 5. And we do have Nate Hunt and Caden Domino. Domino has turned to a really good player for us. You know, not a guy, he's not fast, obviously, but he's come down from that linebacker position. He basically plays as a linebacker and is able to find, you know, solid playing time as an original walk-on. Nate Hunt is also a pretty good guy as well. 14 total tackles so far from the solo end. That's good for 2nd place in the entire NCAA. That dude is a problem. As for the rest of the guys on the squad, we'll check out the rushing stats for our guys so far. And CJ Holman's been doing a pretty good job. Has 134 yards on the ground, but, you know, he is taking a little bit of a step back. Maybe that injury from last season has hurt him a little bit, but he does already have 2 rushing touchdowns. And you gotta remember, we are playing against tougher competition at the non-conference level than, you know, what we would experience in conference play. So I imagine that 67 yards a game will go up when we play against lesser opponents, and that even includes Arkansas State, because, I mean, Arkansas State is a good football program, but, you know, that being said, you know, they're not, you know, of the caliber of Michigan or Ole Miss, to say the least. Holman has also contributed through the air as well, has 7 receptions so far this season, only for 23 total yards, but does have a touchdown already on the season as well, and hasn't dropped a pass yet. Matter of fact, he's only dropped 2 passes in his whole career. Miami Uiagalelei has also found the end zone on the ground as well. He has 13 carries for 79 yards and has a touchdown as well. He does have 2 interceptions versus those 2 touchdowns. You know, one of them was, actually, now that I think about it, both of them were more like arm punts. You know, just trying to like move the ball downfield, 3rd and longs, you know, 4th and longs, you know, stuff like that. And, you know, he's turning into a solid quarterback, 75 throw power, 72 throw accuracy, you know, still has that speed, you know, 82 speed, 72 acceleration. His awareness has gone up quite a bit as well. Just getting a lot of reps, since, he came onto campus as a true freshman. I would love to see this kid, have at least like 2,500 yards passing, and then, if we can get like, I don't know, like 700 yards on the ground as well with him, that would be amazing to see. For receivers, I talked about CJ Holman, who actually ties the team with most catches so far this season, but Darren Blue is not too far behind. He's just trying to pick up where he left off last season. He only has 7 catches for 59 yards so far this year, but I mean, he was on a tear, to start his freshman campaign, but has, cooled it down just a little bit, though. Still a solid receiver, though, just hasn't found the end zone quite yet. Adam Hildeford isn't too far behind receiver-wise, close to lead leaguer, or at least team leader in, like, most yards. He has 72 yards total. Jeremy Sprinkle Jr., he didn't get a catch last game against Michigan, but he does lead the team in receiving yards. He has 80 receiving yards to this point. And then Robert Price Jr. also didn't get a catch in the last game, but he does have a receiving touchdown, from that game against Ole Miss. But I love both of these tight ends personally. They are going to be some contributors for quite some time. I love to see it. On the defensive side of football, I kind of talked about Nate Hunt and Caden Domino. But we got some guys, man. Josh Brown, he has 9 total tackles. And then Chris Tye is his first year on the field. He already has 8 tackles to his name, as well as a couple of sacks. Justin Burton also with 8 tackles as well. But I don't know. It seems like, he's having a hard time living up to, what he was his sophomore season. Remember, he had 140 tackles in his first 2 seasons here as a Quaker starter. And he has multiple interceptions. He hasn't gotten any picks yet, but I imagine, he'll eventually get picks because he's simply too good to not, get any interceptions, not cause any turnovers or anything like that. This kid now has 95 speed, 99 excel, and 95 agility. So he has speed to burn, he's not going to get beat from behind that easily. And his catching's even at 80. So if it's in his stratosphere, he's more likely than not going to be able to make that catch for us. Chris Tye is also leading the way with TFLs. He has 5 total TFLs so far in this ball game. That's followed up by Finn Otis, who has 4, and Matthew Sands has 4 total tackles as well. This is a great group of guys right here. Chris Tye, he wasn't going to start at the defensive end position, so he was kicked out to defensive tackle, and that's turned out really well. He may be a little bit undersized for a defensive tackle, but that being said, he's turned into, a really solid player for us here, and that's something that I really like to see. We've also had 5 total sacks so far, and it's also between Chris Tye and Matthew Sands. They have 4 to 5, and Nate Hunt, was able to get in there and get a sack. We also only have 1 interception so far. That was Cameron Frost, in the Ole Miss game. We missed this footage. He almost took it to the crib. It was an 83-yard return, and it set up our final score in that Ole Miss game. Put us over 40 points total. Caden Domino has been really impressive, as a hard hitter. He has 2 forced fumbles already. I mean, look at his stuff, He can't really tackle, only a 55 tackle, but he has 95 hit power, He can really, throw the lumber down for sure, and that's something that I really do love to see overall. We didn't recover one of his forced fumbles, but Justin Burton does have a fumble recovery. That kept us in the game against Michigan, but, it wasn't something that, was able to bring us back necessarily. We're 1-1, unfortunately, even with that forced fumble. So next episode, we will go ahead and have our very first home game of the season finally. We will go ahead and take on the Arkansas State Red Wolves, who are currently 1-0 on this young season, here in year number 4. It's going to be a good one. Thank you so much for tuning into today's podcast episode. And if you're loving the content here on this channel, I encourage you to smash that like button. And then also, if you're brand new to the channel as well and you haven't done so already, I encourage you to hit that subscribe button. If you haven't done so already, this is John J. Gaming on the mic signing off. But I'm hoping you're all out there having a wonderful day. Take care, everybody.